on to question 33. They say a farmer wants to fence a rectangular plot of land that is 30 meters long and 24 meters wide. Here we have a diagram, and although the rectangle is not in the typical orientation that we're accustomed to, it is still a rectangle, right? We have 4 sides, and 2 sides that are parallel are equal in length, and the other 2 sides that are parallel are also equal in length. Alright, and we're seeing the longer side is 30 meters, so it did say it is 30 meters long and 24 meters wide. What length of wire is needed to completely fence the land? Alright, so a question like this, what is this asking us to do? So the first thing is we need to understand that if we're completely fencing the land, right? Completely fencing the land. And they're also asking us length of wire, right? Length of wire. For us to completely fence the land, what we need to recognize is that fencing the land means that you are going to put wire along the sides of the plot of land, like this. So we would put wire there, we would put wire here, we put wire going across this way, and we'd also put some wire going across this way. Alright, so now when we look at that, we have to ask ourselves, well, what is this particular property of this shape? What do we call the distance around a flat shape? That's the first thing that we need to ask ourselves, right? And if we're able to come up with the answer, we will then be able to do the rest of the question. So the first thing is the distance around a shape, right, is called the perimeter, right? So the perimeter is this distance, and this is what they're asking us to do, because fencing the land means putting fence on the perimeter of the property. So to get the length of wire needed, right, perimeter is a distance, and this is the reason why they're asking for the length of wire. The perimeter will give us the length of wire. Alright, the perimeter of the rectangular plot is going to give us the length of wire. So we're going to find the perimeter of the shape, and if we can find the perimeter of the shape, we have our answer. So how do we find perimeter of a rectangle? Well, we should remember that if perimeter is the distance around the shape, even if you can't remember a perimeter formula, you can still come up with it, right? So perimeter is 2 times the length plus the width of the rectangle. Alright? Perimeter is 2 times the length plus the width of the rectangle. So what is the length of the rectangle? It told us the length of the rectangle is 30 meters. We're seeing that on the diagram as well. So let's write that in. The length of the rectangle is 30, and the width is, what is the other distance we're given? We're given 24 meters. That's this distance here. So we're going to write in the width as 24 meters. So the width is 24 meters. All we have to do now, we're going to put that into our perimeter formula, and we will get our answer. So the perimeter is 2 times 30 plus 24. So we can add up what's in brackets first and then multiply it by 2. You could also use distributive law and multiply 2 by 30 and 2 by 24, and you'll also get the answer for the perimeter by adding those two numbers after. Alright, so let's do the easier way. 30 plus 24 is going to give me 54, And now I just need to multiply 54 by 2, and I will get my answer for perimeter. So my answer for the perimeter is 108. And what unit did we measure the length and width of the land? We measured it in meters. So our perimeter would also be given in meters. So our answer here is that the perimeter is 108 meters. So we're just going to write in the 108 on the answer line. Alright, because they already have meters at the end of the answer line. So we write 108. Now, like I was saying, even if you forget the perimeter formula, you could still come up with the perimeter by recalling that perimeter is the distance around the shape, like we just said. The fence has to go on the edges of the land, which is the perimeter. So even if you did not remember the formula, you could do something like this. Well, the length here is 30. This side would also be 30. The width of the land is 24 meters, which is going to mean that this side here as well is also 24 meters. So we can write that in as well. And if you remember, perimeter is the distance around the shape. So perimeter would mean adding 30 and 24 and 30 and 24 again. So you could still calculate your perimeter by adding the length of all four sides, which we just said is 30 plus 24 plus 30 plus 24. Right? Once you could add those numbers up together, you would still get 108. Now, think about something as well. Even when you write out this statement where you have 30 plus 24, 30 plus 24, you might be able to recognize that you see two 30s in your statement and you see two 24s in your statement, which basically shows you that this is 2 times the length, right? Because you have 2 times the 30, and 2 24s meaning 2 times your width. So you could still get the answer, like I said, by just adding all the sides together, right? You could possibly, based on how much marks I'm seeing the question is for, there's a possibility that you would still probably get the marks, the 2 full marks, even if you just did 108 by adding all the sides versus using your formula. Because in a question like this, the reasoning, right? I think the reasoning is where one of your marks would be allocated, not necessarily the computational aspect of how you get your perimeter. So once you understand how perimeter is applied in a scenario like this, you'd be able to get your answer and you'd be able to get your 2 marks. Now, the part B for this question. The part B of the question says, to fence the land, poles are placed 3 meters apart. Alright, so that's a key thing here. 3 meters apart. And they want to know how many poles are needed. So we're fencing this entire plot of land. We're placing poles along the land as we're fencing. And they're saying that every 3 meters we are going to be placing a pole. So let's just try to visualize that first and foremost, right? So one of the things that I want to say is this. You see, we could use the fact that we have the perimeter and just divide it by 3 and we'll probably get a number for what we could assume is the number of poles, right? But what we have to pay attention to is the way in which this plot of land is going to be fenced, right? You wouldn't want to have 2 poles basically there next to each other, not serving a purpose, right? And you'll understand why I say that in a little bit. But think about it, right? Let's just say we start at this corner of the land. We're going to put poles And we start here, right? We're starting at this corner of the land. So that's the first pole. Now we need to place poles every 3 meters. So by using the fact that 24 is a multiple of 3, if we divide 24 by 3, that means we should have 8 poles ideally along the width of the land, right? So let's just try to illustrate what that could look like, right? 8 poles along the land. So it could look something like this, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Wait, it's just a little too close, but you understand the idea, right? You're trying to place the poles in such a way that the poles all have to have 3-meter spaces between them, right? That's the general idea behind this. We have to have at least 3-meter spaces between them. Now, like I was saying, it's the entire plot of land, right? Not just one side, or not just 2 sides, but the entire plot of land. So now, let's say we finish this side, we have to come along the length of the property now. Again, we're going to do the same thing. You want to place poles at every 3-meter interval, right? And technically, this first pole, right, would be the first along this 30-meter length. So now we'll measure 3 meters from this pole, right? So let's start placing poles along this one. And again, 30 is a multiple of 3, so we could divide 30 by 3 and we will get 10. So ideally, along this path, we should have 10 poles, right? So let's see if our illustration can work out nicely. That's, we'll get an idea of how many have to go along each side of the land, and that might help us with estimating the total number of poles, right? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right, that's 10 there, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? So we do have the 10 along here. Right? 10 poles. We also have the 8, like I mentioned as well. 8 poles along the width. Now, think about something, right? If I were to just take the length and the width and just divide it, and I know I have to put 10 and then I have to put 8, then according to that, I would end up putting 8 here as well and then another 10 there. But you have to look at the fact that the poles at the corners actually contribute to both the number of poles on the length and width at the same time. So in essence, what's happening there is that those poles on the corners, right, would take away at least 2 poles that you would be counting if you were just dividing the sides by 3 and figuring out how many have to go there. So according to what we're doing now, right, we're placing the poles along the length and width of the property, right? Here I would just need 7 more poles, which would mean placing 6 poles between the corner poles, right? These 2 corner poles here. So I just have to get 6 to go on the property width again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 8 there again. And then between this corner pool and this corner pool, I just have to place 8, right? To make my 10 pools along the length of it, right? 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. All right, so let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm missing 1. I'll just throw 1 in here. All right, so remember, like I said, we want to make sure we have 10 on the length and 8 on the width, and essentially the corner pools would count twice if I was doing it that way, to just put 8 and 10, 8 and 10, right? So based on how the plot of land is being fenced now, the corner pools we'd have to take away 2, right? We'd have to take away 2. So in total, if I just count how many I've made here, right? Let's count it, and then we'll go to the working out of the problem itself. From here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like I said, 8 here. And if we count down this way, 8 and 9 would give me 17. Alright, so we have 17 pools by the time we get to this corner. And then we're going to add 7 going this way, so 17, and 7 is going to get us to 34. And then 34, we're not counting 10, but we're actually going to count 8, because like I said, these corner pools count twice if we count 10 again. So we're adding 8 to 34, right? So 8 plus the 34 is going to give us 44 pools. Alright, we'll get 44 pools. So in total, the number of pools needed is really and truly 44, right? What I just want to check here is what is the amount of marks for the question? 1 mark, right? Okay, so basically, because it is a 1 mark question, what I would suggest is, in a case like this, if you want to be able to get the answer, right, you can do that little bit of reasoning there, right? You can use that little bit of reasoning. Because if we were to take the 108 and divide it by 3, right? Let's see what we'll get if we divide 108 by 3. So 108 divided by 3 is going to give us 3 into 10 is 3, remainder 1, 3 into 18 is 6. So we'd end up getting 36 pools, right? So we're actually short of some pools. And that's because we're actually doing a rectangle, right? The way in which I would want to try to explain this is basically like what we use at higher levels is, so the easiest way I could suggest to do a question like this is to reason it out in that way with, if you have to place the poles along the perimeter of the rectangle, how you would place them, and that way might get you to your answer a lot better, because like I said, if you try to divide the 108 by 3, you're not going to get the answer there, right? So definitely try working it this way, where you divide the distances, the length and the width, by 3, and that will tell you how many poles have to go along those sides. And just remember, like I was saying, on each side, basically, once we already have a side where it covers a corner, that post is going to count twice, right? So You would just have to count the ones in between to account for your 10 and your 8 for the other sides. Alright? That's as best as I can to keep it really, really simple with this question. But once you catch the idea of how you're doing that little piece there with putting in the polls, you should be able to, get a good idea of how to reason out something similar to a question like this. Alright?